So next, I want to introduce Keith Stamper. And Keith is working on his MMR, and he has done some great work on cars and so forth. And he's going to show us a combine that he built. So Steve, welcome.
As Jim mentioned, I'm working on my MMR, and I recently did my car certificate, and so I've now got 3 certificates, and I'm working on my 4th one, which is locomotives, but that's another story. Just an introduction to myself. I grew up around steam locomotives. I'm an African. I grew up in Central Africa. My dad worked on the railroad. So scratch building a combine. I needed a combine for my home layout. I model in ON3, and I know Larry McDonald very well. We're close friends. So I'm also a Canuck. I live up near Niagara Falls on the other side of the border. And I have a home layout. My home layout is modeled on the Colorado and Southern Railroad with a smattering of RGS in there as well, because I happen to like galloping geese. So one of the things I needed was a combine for my layout and passenger traffic, because I operate my layout and we need to run some passenger cars. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, and you have probably seen in the latest Narrow Gauge Gazette, an article on scratch building a beautiful car, an Alamosa parlor car. The builder of that car and I collaborated. He helped me and gave me some guidance and also sent me some information. So to build my roof, what you're going to see, you could also see in the Narrow Gauge Gazette. I made a vacuum box. So it started off with some simple pieces of wood, some perf board, and I fabricated a box that I could set the perf board into, and obviously put a base on that box, and then connect it to my shop vac and create a vacuum. The reason why I did this is because I needed to vacuum form the roof for my car. So here you see the box minus the aluminum frame. And here's the aluminum frame I made, which grips the sheet of 40 thou styrene. I bought 40 thou sheets of styrene and I clamp them between the 2 pieces. So what I do is I take this frame that you can see, and I don't know whether you can see my pointer or not, but here, and I put these paper clamps on here, and I grip the piece of 40 thou styrene in here, and then I stick it in the oven at 375 degrees and let it sit there for 5 minutes. Once it's heated, I pull this frame out very carefully using my wife's red cooking gloves or whatever those things are, and I press it down over the box and I create the shape. Now, to make the forms for the roof, I had to create some wooden shapes, and my friend out in California gave me some guidance on this, and basically I copied what he did. So if you look in the Narrow Gauge Gazette, you'll see this exact same method. I worked from a rudimentary plan in the Narrow Gauge Gazette, and I made my shapes, and then by putting these inside the vacuum box and pressing the heated styrene down over it with the vacuum cleaner running, it drew a vacuum. So as you can see, I shaped it. Using a sanding block, I formed this car roof. So here you see the 2 pieces, the clerestory and the lower part of the roof. This is what I used, and again, my friend out in California, Dave, he showed me how to make this, and I simply went ahead and made my little shape, and it didn't take long to form those shapes for the roof. I simply drew the wood through. I went to the lumberyard to Home Depot, and I bought some clear pine and used that to form my roof. So here you see the styrene as it is in the box. Once I pulled the vacuum over it, and if you look, you can see there's a little bit of a gap here where it tore, but that didn't matter because I was going to cut this off. I cut this away with a knife. So once I had my 2 sections, I simply discarded the rest of the styrene. So once I had cut them out, this is what I ended up with, kind of saggy pieces. Very soft, actually, very easy to work with. And you can see the forms in the background there. I used sanding block and sanding tools, and I formed the roof shape. I mean, a lot of this was done by eye and working off the plan in the Narrow Gauge Gazette to get to the actual shape that I wanted. There's a company that made kits many years ago called Crossing Gate. They produced sections of roof that are very similar to this. And I have a feeling that this idea of making a roof in this way is nothing new. There was an article in the Narrow Gauge Gazette many years ago showing how this could be done. Somebody built up an entire train. To form the Clerestory was a little bit more involved. I purchased from Grantline their Clerestory roof sections, and I modified them. I cut them to shape, and I shortened each one so that I'd get the correct count or number of Clerestories in the roof. So I laid them out on. First I taped down my straight edge. You can see in the drawing there, in the photograph there, that the straight edge is actually taped down to my work surface. And then I used sections of styrene, and I cut the Clerestory sections into individual pieces. I trimmed them. I have a tool which is made by our friends at Altamation. It's called a slicer. And I cut each section using the slicer to get the correct dimensions. I basically cut one and then just used the slicer tool to do a repeat of each one. And then I glued each piece to the styrene as shown. You can see the first two pieces are glued in place. And then I lifted them off and mounted them onto the car body. So in this photograph, you can see the body of the car as well, which I'll talk about next week. But you can see how I've mounted all the individual sections of the Clerestory and set them into the roof, so to speak. I built a frame. You can see those large square pieces of styrene under there, which made the roof completely removable. I could lift it out of the car. So here you see the first section of the styrene in place. I cut those sections that I had made in my vacuum forming box, and I glued one to each side of the roof, butting it up against the Clerestory. And then I made the upper section and I glued that on. In this particular photograph, you can see also that I've now begun to add the material for the roof that I actually glued down. It's tissue paper. I glued it down with or attached it with MEK and also with some black Flowcool paint. So that's how I made my roof. I hope I didn't go too fast. Jim told me I got 15 minutes, so 15 minutes it is. Thanks, guys. If you've got questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Hopefully you can see my ugly mug here on the screen.
Yes, we
There I
can.
am. Yay, there I am.
Well,
So
Keith,
anybody got any questions?
I really appreciate you doing this for us. It's going to be a beautiful model when you get it finished. Does anybody have any
Actually-
questions for Keith?
It is finished now, Jim. I've had it scored. I
Yeah.
got a really good score on it too for my car certificate. I was very happy.
I can understand why. It's going to be a beautiful model, but when we see it finished.
I'll show it to you finished. Yes.
Anybody have
Anyway.
any questions for Keith?
Excellent modeling.
It really is.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Really appreciate you doing this, Keith. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.